All right, let's talk about a phrase you might hear a lot, the big beautiful bill. Now, if you go looking for that term in a civics textbook or a guide to how laws are made, you're going to come up empty. That's because it's not an official term. It's not something a senator formally writes on a piece of paper. Instead, it's a nickname, a brand name invented by none other than Donald Trump. Think of it like calling a superhero movie the awesome action flick. It's not the real title, but it tells you exactly what the person who named it wants you to think. That it's huge, it's wonderful, and you should be excited about it. This is pure marketing, applied to the often boring world of legislation. When Donald Trump says he has a big beautiful bill, he's talking about a massive piece of legislation. These aren't small, quiet laws that tweak one little rule. No, these are the giant, sprawling bills that try to change many things all at once. They often deal with the biggest topics you can imagine: how much we all pay in taxes, how the government spends its money on things like healthcare or defense, or how businesses are supposed to operate in America. The name itself is a power move. Big tells you it's important and has a huge impact. Beautiful is his way of telling you that the results will be fantastic for everyone, a masterpiece of policymaking. So why use this phrase instead of, say, the 2025 Fiscal Responsibility and Economic Growth Act? Because that sounds incredibly dull, and frankly, most people would stop listening after the first 3 words. Trump understands that to get people to support something complicated, you need to make it sound simple and exciting. Big Beautiful Bill is easy to remember. It fits perfectly in a tweet or a news headline, and it immediately frames the debate. He's not just passing a law, he's delivering a grand, wonderful gift to the nation. It's a communication strategy designed to build hype and drown out the complicated and often messy details hidden inside. Throughout his political career, this has been a go-to move. He used similar language to describe the huge tax cuts in 2017, the major COVID-19 relief packages in 2020, and most recently, another giant law passed in 2025. Each time, the branding is the same. This isn't just another bill from Washington, D.C. This is a historic, game-changing event. It's a way of turning the dry process of creating laws into a blockbuster event, with him as the star producer. But as we'll see, what's inside the shiny packaging is what really matters. And that's often far more complicated than a simple, catchy name suggests. Donald Trump's method for selling his big beautiful bills is all about the promise, delivered with the energy of a mega stadium concert. He doesn't get bogged down in the nitty-gritty details of policy briefs or budget charts. Instead, he paints a picture with broad, powerful strokes, using words that are designed to make you feel good. He'll talk about tremendous tax cuts for everyone, unbelievable job growth, and making America stronger than ever before. These aren't just descriptions, they are emotional triggers. The goal is to create a feeling of optimism and victory before anyone has had a chance to read the fine print, which, let's be honest, is usually hundreds of pages long. This strategy relies heavily on repetition and catchy slogans. By calling a bill big and beautiful over and over again, the idea starts to stick in people's minds. He promises simple solutions to complex problems. Worried about your taxes? He promises a massive cut. Concerned about the economy? He promises the greatest economic boom in history. These promises are easy to understand and very appealing. It's much more effective to tell people they will have more money in their pockets than to explain the intricate ways that tax brackets are being restructured or how deductions are changing. He speaks directly to people's hopes and fears, not to their inner policy analyst. Consider the audience. Trump isn't trying to convince a room full of economists. He's trying to convince a nation of voters. He knows that most people don't have the time or the desire to become experts on tax law or healthcare policy. So he gives them the highlights in the most exciting way possible. He'll hold up a prop, perhaps a chart with a line going straight up, and declare that this is what will happen to jobs. He makes it a spectacle. The promise isn't just about the outcome, it's about the feeling of being part of something huge and successful. It's a classic sales technique. Sell the sizzle, not the steak. The danger of this approach, of course, is that the big promises can sometimes overshadow the real-world consequences. A beautiful tax cut might sound great, but who does it help the most? A promise of fantastic new jobs doesn't explain what kind of jobs they will be or if they will last. By focusing so much on the grand vision, the specific details, who pays for it, who might get left behind, and what the long-term risks are, can get lost in the noise. The big promise is a powerful tool for building support, but it also creates a massive gap between the exciting sales pitch and the complicated reality of the law itself. Let's rewind to 2017 to look at the first major big beautiful bill of the Trump presidency, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. This was a perfect example of his approach in action. The bill was promoted with promises of a huge economic boom that would benefit every American. Trump and his supporters said that by cutting taxes, especially for big companies, businesses would have more money to invest, hire more workers, and raise wages. It was sold as a middle-class miracle, a Christmas gift to the American people that would simplify the tax code and supercharge the economy. The message was simple and optimistic: less tax, more jobs, more money for you. The law itself was enormous and complex. Its biggest and most permanent feature was a massive cut to the corporate tax rate, dropping it from 35% all the way down to 21%. The idea was that this would make America a more attractive place for businesses to operate. The bill also temporarily lowered income tax rates for most individuals and families, but those cuts were set to expire after a few years. It also changed a lot of the rules about what you could deduct from your taxes, like limiting the deduction for state and local taxes, which hit people hard in high-tax states like New York and California. So, what happened? Well, it's complicated and people still argue about it today. On one hand, the economy did continue to grow after the bill was passed, and unemployment remained low. Many large corporations did see their profits soar, and some used that money to buy back their own stock, which boosts the value for shareholders. Some companies did give out one-time bonuses to their employees, which was highlighted by the bill's supporters as proof of its success. The promises of a massive investment boom and soaring wages for everyone, however, didn't quite materialize in the dramatic way that was promised for the average worker. On the other hand, the bill added a huge amount to the national debt, trillions of dollars over the next decade. Critics pointed out that the benefits were heavily skewed towards the wealthiest Americans and large corporations, while middle and lower-income families received a much smaller, temporary benefit. The promise of simplicity didn't really pan out either, as the tax code remained incredibly complicated for most people. This 2017 bill became a classic example of the big, beautiful bill strategy. It was sold with grand promises of universal prosperity, but the actual results were a mixed bag, with clear winners and a very high price tag for the country's future. Fast forward to today, July 7th, 2025. Just a few days ago, on Independence Day, a new big beautiful bill was signed into law. This one is even more ambitious and controversial than its 2017 predecessor. Once again, it was promoted with promises of boosting the economy and helping working families. The bill is a massive package that touches on everything from taxes and spending to border security and healthcare. Supporters call it a necessary course correction to get America's economy roaring and its borders under control. They point to popular provisions like making tips and overtime pay tax-free as proof that it's designed to help the average person. Let's break down what's inside this nearly 900-page law. A huge part of it is making the 2017 individual tax cuts permanent, which was the biggest piece of unfinished business for its supporters. But it also includes significant spending cuts to programs like Medicaid, which provides health care for low-income Americans, and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as food stamps. The bill introduces new, stricter work requirements for people to receive these benefits. At the same time, it dramatically increases spending on border security, with billions allocated for building more of the wall and hiring thousands of new immigration enforcement officers. The bill is a collection of trade-offs where some groups get new benefits while others see their support systems cut. For businesses, it extends rules that let them immediately write off the cost of new equipment, which is a big incentive to invest. For people in high-tax states, it temporarily raises the cap on the SALT deduction, giving them a bit of a break. It also includes a new tax credit for seniors and a slightly larger child tax credit. However, to pay for some of this, or at least to appear to, the bill makes deep cuts to social safety nets and eliminates many of the clean energy tax credits that were passed in previous years. This 2025 bill perfectly illustrates the big beautiful bill philosophy. It's a giant, all-or-nothing package that mixes popular ideas, like tax cuts on tips, with deeply divisive ones, like cutting food aid. By bundling everything together, it forces a difficult choice. You have to take the parts you don't like to get the parts you do. The promises are, once again, grand and sweeping. More money, more security, a stronger nation. But beneath the surface, the law makes very specific choices about who the government will help more and who it will help less, setting the stage for a fierce debate about its true cost and consequences. When a big beautiful bill is announced, economists don't just applaud the catchy name. Instead, they put on their green eye shades, pull out their calculators, and start asking some tough questions. Their job is to look past the promises and analyze the numbers. The first thing they look at is the cost. How much will this law add to the national debt? For the 2025 bill, the estimates are, well, staggering. While supporters use creative accounting to claim it could reduce the deficit, nonpartisan groups like the Congressional Budget Office, CBO, project it will add trillions of dollars to the debt over the next decade. This is a major concern, folks, because more debt can lead to higher interest rates and economic instability down the road. Next, economists analyze the bill's impact on the economy as a whole. They want to know if it will actually create jobs and promote growth, just like promised. They might look at the 2017 tax cuts as a guide. While those cuts did provide a short-term boost, many economists argue it was a sugar high, a temporary burst of energy that faded away, leaving behind a mountain of debt. For the 2025 bill, they're asking similar questions. Will tax cuts for businesses truly lead to more hiring and higher wages? Or will companies just use the extra cash to reward shareholders? Will spending cuts in other areas slow down the economy by taking money out of the pockets of consumers? Another crucial area of analysis is inflation. When the government cuts taxes or spends a lot of money, it pumps more cash into the economy. If there's too much money chasing too few goods, prices can go up, which is what we call inflation. Economists are carefully studying whether the combination of tax cuts and new spending in the 2025 bill could overheat the economy and make everyday items more expensive for everyone. This is a delicate balancing act. A law designed to help people financially could backfire if it causes the cost of gas, groceries, and housing to spike, effectively wiping out any gains from a tax cut. Finally, economists look at who wins and who loses. They break down the bill piece by piece to see how it affects people at different income levels. This is called distributional analysis. For the 2025 bill, early reports from groups like the Penn-Wharton budget model are clear. The benefits are heavily tilted towards the wealthiest households. They gain a lot from permanent tax cuts. Meanwhile, lower-income families are hit hardest by the cuts to Medicaid and food assistance programs. So, while the promise is of universal prosperity, the economic reality is that the bill shifts resources from the poor to the rich, potentially making inequality in America even worse. When a big beautiful bill is on the table, business leaders across America pay very close attention. Their perspective is often quite different from that of an economist or a regular citizen. They look at the legislation through a specific lens, asking one main question: how will this affect my company's bottom line? For many of them, especially leaders of large corporations, the key ingredients they look for are lower taxes and fewer regulations. From their point of view, these things free up money and resources that can be used to grow the business, innovate, and compete on a global scale. The 2017 tax law was, for many in the business community, a dream come true. The sharp cut in the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21% was the single biggest policy goal for many corporate lobbying groups for years. They argued that the old rate was one of the highest in the developed world, putting American companies at a disadvantage. The 2025 bill continues this trend by making business-friendly provisions permanent, such as allowing companies to deduct the full cost of new equipment and research in the year they buy it. This encourages immediate investment and is something that many business leaders strongly support as a driver of modernization and efficiency. However, the business community is not a single entity with one opinion. While large multinational corporations might love the tax cuts, other businesses have different concerns. For example, industries that relied on the clean energy tax credits that were just rolled back in the 2025 bill are now facing a much tougher financial future. Companies in the solar, wind, and electric vehicle sectors see this not as a beautiful bill, but as a major setback that hurts their ability to compete and grow. Similarly, businesses that depend on immigrant labor, from agriculture to hospitality, are deeply concerned about the bill's harsh border security measures and deportation goals, which could create severe labor shortages. Furthermore, some business leaders worry about the long-term effects of rising national debt. While a tax cut is nice today, a future economic crisis caused by out-of-control debt is bad for everyone. Instability is bad for business. They also look at the cuts to social programs and see a potential impact on their workforce. If employees can't get affordable healthcare or their families are struggling to make ends meet, it can lead to a less healthy, less stable, and less productive workforce. So while the immediate sugar rush of a tax cut is tempting, savvy business leaders are also weighing the long-term risks that come with these massive, landscape-changing bills. Every major law, especially one as big as the 2025 Big Beautiful Bill, creates a new set of winners and losers. Despite promises that everyone will benefit, the reality is that the policies inside these bills distribute money and opportunity unevenly. It's like a giant seesaw. When one side goes up, the other side often goes down. The clearest winners from the 2025 bill are high-income households and large corporations. By making the 2017 tax cuts permanent, the wealthiest Americans will continue to pay a lower top tax rate and benefit from other provisions that favor investors. Analysts have calculated that the richest families could see their after-tax income increase by thousands of dollars each year. The bill also creates specific winners in certain industries. For example, the defense industry wins big with billions of dollars allocated for new projects like a missile defense system. Companies involved in border security and construction will see a surge in government contracts. Even rural hospitals get a boost, with billions in new funding to help them stay open, a provision added to secure crucial votes for the bill's passage. People who earn a lot of tips, like restaurant servers or who work a lot of overtime, will also see a direct benefit from the new tax exemptions, putting more cash directly into their pockets, though the final bill did place some limits on this. On the other side of the seesaw are the losers. The group most directly affected by the 2025 bill are low-income families who rely on government assistance. The deep cuts to Medicaid and SNAP or food stamps mean that millions of people could lose their healthcare coverage or struggle to afford groceries. The Congressional Budget Office projected that millions more Americans will become uninsured and that millions will lose their food aid. The new, stricter work requirements will also make it much harder for many people, including parents and older adults, to qualify for the help they need. For these families, the Big Beautiful Bill looks anything but beautiful. The other major group left with the bill is, in a sense, all of us, specifically future generations of Americans. By adding an estimated $3.3 trillion to the national debt, the bill is essentially borrowing from the future to pay for tax cuts today. That debt doesn't just disappear, it has to be paid back, and that will likely mean higher taxes, cuts to other government services, or a weaker economy for our children and grandchildren. So while the bill is sold as a win for today, it pushes a massive financial burden onto the shoulders of those who had no say in its passage, making them the silent losers in this high-stakes legislative gamble. When a big beautiful bill gets rolled out, policy experts and critics immediately raise a big red flag, and it usually has the word transparency written on it. Transparency just means that the government should be open and clear about what it's doing. Critics argue that the Big Beautiful Bill approach is the exact opposite of transparent. The catchy, positive branding is used to distract from the hundreds of pages of dense legal text where the real details are hidden. The bill is often rushed through Congress with very little time for public debate or for lawmakers themselves to fully understand what they are voting on. This creates a situation where major changes are made without proper scrutiny. One of the biggest criticisms is the lack of honest discussion about who truly benefits. The sales pitch is always about helping the middle class or working families. However, independent analysis consistently shows that the lion's share of the benefits from bills like the 2017 and 2025 laws goes to the wealthiest individuals and corporations. Critics argue that this is a deliberate bait and switch. Small, popular provisions like a tax cut on tips are put front and center in the marketing, while the much larger and more impactful tax cuts for the rich are downplayed. This lack of clarity makes it hard for the public to have an informed debate about whether the bill is truly fair. Another major concern for policy experts is the use of what they call budget gimmicks. This refers to clever accounting tricks used to make the bill look less expensive than it actually is. For example, in the 2025 bill, supporters claimed it would reduce the deficit by assuming the 2017 tax cuts were already permanent, which they weren't. It's like saying you're saving money by not buying a yacht you were never going to buy anyway. Critics call this dishonest budgeting. They also point to making some tax cuts temporary, which makes the 10-year cost look lower, even though everyone knows the plan is to extend them later, hiding the true long-term cost from the public. Ultimately, the core criticism is that this style of legislating prioritizes political victory over good policy. The goal is to jam a massive partisan bill through Congress as quickly as possible, celebrating it as a big, beautiful win. This process avoids the hard work of building consensus, holding open hearings, and carefully considering the long-term consequences. Critics argue that a healthy democracy requires slow, careful, and transparent lawmaking, where the public understands the trade-offs. The big beautiful bill approach, they say, replaces that with a flashy marketing campaign and a mountain of hidden details and future debt. So, what do we make of the big beautiful bill phenomenon? It's a clash of four very different perspectives. First, you have Donald Trump's view. These bills are bold, transformative actions that cut through government red tape to deliver prosperity and strength. They are sold with grand promises, simple slogans, and a powerful sense of optimism. From this standpoint, the bills are a success the moment they are signed, a promise kept and a victory for the American people. The messy details and long-term costs are secondary to the immediate symbolic achievement. Second, you have the Economists' view, which is all about the price tag and the data. They look at these bills and see a massive increase in the national debt, a concerning trend of rising inequality, and a sugar-high economic boost that doesn't last. They measure the impact not in applause lines at a rally, but in trillions of dollars added to the deficit and in the widening gap between the rich and the poor. Their analysis is a sobering reality check, a splash of cold water on the celebratory parade, warning that there is no such thing as a free lunch or a free multi-trillion-dollar tax cut. Third, there's the perspective of business leaders, which is practical and focused on the bottom line. For many, particularly in large corporations, these bills are good for business. Lower taxes and deregulation mean more profit and greater flexibility to invest and compete. They see it as creating a healthier environment for capitalism to thrive. However, this view isn't universal. Other businesses, especially those in green energy or those reliant on immigrant labor, see these same policies as harmful and disruptive, creating a more volatile and unpredictable market for them to navigate. It's a story of targeted benefits, not universal business bliss. Finally, and most importantly, you have the perspective of the American people, who are not a single group but a collection of individuals with different needs and circumstances. The big beautiful bill is not an abstract concept. It has real-world effects. For some, it might mean a slightly lower tax bill or a job bonus. For others, it might mean losing their health care, their food assistance, or facing a tougher job market. The debate over these bills is really a debate over America's priorities. Who deserves help? Who should pay for it? And what kind of country do we want to be? The shiny wrapping paper of the big beautiful bill can't hide the fundamental choices hidden inside.